Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Wednesday, July 16th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside, the temperature will reach a high of 84.9 degrees today, with a low of 63.3. A warm, clear day for our listeners across Southern California. Stay hydrated if you're spending time outdoors. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll dive into the evolving situation surrounding Trump's approach to the conflict in Ukraine, examining the potential reasons for any shifts in strategy. Then, we turn our attention to California's water crisis, looking at how the invasive golden mussel has become the state's most significant threat to its vital water supply. All this and more, right after the break on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. Our first big story this morning takes us to Washington, D.C., where U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a significant shift in his administration's policy regarding Russia and the ongoing war in Ukraine. For details, we turn to our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, what can you tell us about this surprising development?
Grace, it's a major pivot. On Monday, July 14, 2025, just 2 days ago, President Trump unveiled a new policy. After months of no new U.S. military aid for Ukraine, according to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, that's set to change dramatically following his meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
So, what's the core of this new policy, especially concerning military aid?
The central pillar is a new deal to supply top-of-the-line weapons to Ukraine. President Trump emphasized billions of dollars worth of military equipment would be purchased from the U.S. by NATO allies, covering the cost themselves, not U.S. taxpayers. He called it a financially beneficial deal. The mechanism, as ABC News uncovered, involves NATO members sending weapons from their stockpiles, which the U.S. will then backfill with new American-made weapons for greater speed.
What specific weapons and which allies are on board?
Key among them are Patriot missile systems and batteries, urgently requested by Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte confirmed many allies, including Germany, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, and Canada, are prepared to cover these costs. Germany, for instance, offered to finance 2 additional Patriot systems. It's a very patriotic gesture to bolster Ukraine's defenses.
Beyond the aid, President Trump also issued a striking ultimatum to Russia. Can you elaborate?
That's right, Grace. President Trump issued a 50-day ultimatum for Russia to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine. This deadline is September 2, 2025, meaning Russia has just 48 days from today to comply. If no deal is reached, he threatened, quote, very severe tariffs, including 100% tariffs on Russian goods, and, crucially, secondary tariffs of 100% on other countries that purchase Russian exports.
Secondary tariffs? What does that imply for global trade?
It's a potential game changer. Secondary sanctions mean the U.S. would penalize countries continuing to do business with Russia. If implemented, this aims to restrict Russia from selling its oil and other exports elsewhere, effectively strangling their economy. It's a tariff-I-C threat.
This is a strong stance, quite a departure. What do analysts believe is driving this dramatic shift?
This signals clear frustration on Trump's part with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with Trump stating Putin, quote, fooled a lot of people. Media outlets described it as a major shift. Foreign policy analysts, as reported by the Washington Post, suggest it's also a calculated political maneuver serving America First interests, aiming to boost the U.S. defense industry and stimulate economic activity.
So a mix of frustration and domestic interests. But what about concerns experts have raised?
Concerns persist. President Trump is only calling for a ceasefire, not demanding Russia return occupied territory. A key concern is the 50-day delay. Experts warn it could lead to many Ukrainian civilian deaths. This long lead time is viewed with skepticism, given Trump's history of pushing back deadlines, earning him the Wall Street nickname Taco, or Trump always chickens out. Jennifer Kavanaugh, a senior fellow at Defense Priorities, considers it counterproductive.
Taco is certainly unique. How have other experts weighed in?
Views differ. Kimberly Kagan, president of the Institute for the Study of War, views it as fundamental and important for signaling Putin cannot win militarily. However, Kavanaugh is more skeptical, calling it a lot more show than substance due to low weapons stockpiles and limited types of aid. She notes defensive weapons like Patriots primarily protect cities, not frontline soldiers. It seems there's a miscellaneous bag of opinions.
A complex policy with risks. How have various parties reacted?
Reactions are mixed. Russia dismissed it as much ado about nothing, with their stock market reportedly rising. European allies largely welcomed the weapons deal, though the EU's top diplomat noted 50 days is a long time. In the U.S. Congress, there's bipartisan support for even more stringent measures, with Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal pushing legislation for tariffs up to 500% on countries buying Russian oil and gas.
So some congressional members want to go further. Finally, Ethan, given President Trump's past actions, how much weight should we really put on these self-imposed deadlines?
That's crucial. Skepticism about the 50-day ultimatum is fueled by Trump's documented history of setting and then failing to adhere to deadlines. During his 2024 campaign, he promised to end the Ukraine war within 24 hours. Regarding trade deals, he frequently pushed back deadlines. The advice from experts and reporting from Bloomberg is to pay attention to actual policy actions, not just headlines.
Thank you, Ethan, for that detailed breakdown of this significant policy shift. We appreciate you being on the story for us. This has been Story 1 of 2.
My pleasure, Grace.
Welcome back, everyone. For our second major story this morning, we are turning our attention to a growing environmental crisis here in California that threatens our most vital resource, water. We're talking about a new, highly destructive invasive species that's been making waves, and not the good kind. Joining us to shed some light on this is our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what exactly is happening with our water supply?
Grace, it's a critical situation. California's water supplies are under an unprecedented and urgent threat from a new invasive species, the golden mussel. This mollusk, native to China and Southeast Asia, was first discovered in North America in October of last year, near the port of Stockton, right in the heart of our Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta. According to reporting from U.S. News and World Report and Palo Alto Online, the Delta is the core of California's massive water delivery systems, supplying water to 30 million people and millions of acres of farmland. So it's a big deal.
It sounds like a big deal. We've heard about invasive mussels before, like the quagga and zebra mussels, that have been an issue in parts of the Colorado River and Southern California reservoirs since 2007. Is this golden mussel just another one of those, or is it more serious?
That's an excellent question, Grace. Experts are calling the golden mussel a far more formidable threat. Unlike its cousins, this one has a wider environmental tolerance, meaning it can survive in brackish water, needs less calcium, and tolerates higher temperatures, making more of California's diverse waterways vulnerable. This adaptability, as outlined by sources like ca.gov and minespr.org, makes it a superior invader. What's more, they are incredibly prolific reproducers. A single female can produce up to 1 million eggs annually, reaching maturity in just 3 months. Talk about a population boom.
1 million eggs annually. That's an astounding number. What kind of damage do these tiny creatures actually cause?
The damage is immense, Grace, especially to our infrastructure. These mussels form dense colonies that encrust underwater surfaces, a process known as biofouling. This can severely impact critical water infrastructure, like pipes, pumps, dams, and power plants. Imagine our water supply getting literally choked off. According to U.S. News and World Report and apenews.com, this biofouling can clog small-diameter pipelines and filters, rendering our infrastructure incredibly costly and challenging to maintain. South American countries, which have been battling golden mussels for decades, face annual costs of $30 to $50 million from clogged hydroelectric plants and water systems. Some facilities even spend up to $100,000 per mile of pipe for defouling operations, as reported by watereducation.org and seattlepie.com.
That's an astronomical cost for something so small. So what's the current extent of the infestation here in California? Are they contained, or have they already spread widely?
Unfortunately, they've spread rapidly, Grace. Since that initial discovery near the port of Stockton last October, golden mussels have infiltrated California's two major state and federal water systems. Experts like Ted Groschholz of the UC Davis Coastal and Marine Sciences Institute confirmed to U.S. News and World Report that they are, quote, in many, many more places than we expected, end quote. And he states unequivocally that they, quote, cannot be eradicated, end quote. Their microscopic larvae are already circulating throughout our vast network of pumps, pipes, and canals. Confirmed locations now include the O'Neill Forebay, the California Aqueduct, and even Folsom Lake, indicating their widespread presence across the Delta and San Joaquin Valley waterways, according to mavensnotebook.com and mynspr.org. Tanya Veldhuizen from the California Department of Water Resources grimly put it, as appnews.com reported, that the mussel is, quote, not just on our doorstep, it's in our house, end quote.
That's a chilling analogy, Chloe. If eradication is impossible, what are state water managers doing to try and shore up our systems and prevent further spread?
They're focusing on mitigation, Grace. Mandatory boat inspections are a primary weapon. We're seeing trained K-9 units, like Allie, a Belgian Malinois with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and human inspectors checking for mussels and larvae. Decontamination with hot water and lengthy quarantine periods, sometimes up to 60 days, are now required at some lakes, such as Lake Tahoe and Folsom Lake. Boaters are advised to, quote, clean, drain, and dry, end quote, their vessels thoroughly. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with other agencies, even released a comprehensive golden mussel response framework in April of this year, according to ca.gov. The California Fish and Game Commission also enacted emergency regulations in December of last year, readopted in April and June of this year, listing golden mussels as a restricted animal, which prohibits their importation, transportation, and possession to curb their spread, as reported by planningreport.com.
That sounds like a lot of effort, but with a problem this massive, it must require significant funding. Is the state allocating enough resources to combat this?
Here's where we hit a major snag, Grace. Despite the critical threat, California is facing a staggering $12 billion state budget deficit, as reported by U.S. News and World Report and kpbs.org. This budget, even with some proposed cuts rejected, quote, does not provide funding to fight golden mussels, end quote, leaving resources, quote, stretched precariously thin, end quote, according to kpbs.org. Agencies like the California Department of Fish and Wildlife are also severely understaffed. It's a real catch-22 situation.
That's concerning. Are there any legislative efforts underway to secure dedicated funding, either at the state or federal level?
There are, Grace. At the federal level, on June 4th of this year, which was 42 days ago, Representative Josh Harder introduced the, quote, Golden Mussel Eradication and Control Act, end quote, H.R. 3717. This bill aims to establish a rapid response program and invest in new technology, according to kpbs.org and house.gov. It's been referred to House committees, but there's no timeline for passage yet. At the state level, water agencies are requesting the California legislature to amend specific fish and game codes to include golden mussels and mandate prevention programs, as well as asking for additional funding in the next fiscal year's budget. While not directly for golden mussels alone, Assemblywoman Esmeralda Soria noted in January that the proposed 2025 to 2026 budget included $19.9 million for invasive species projects, and the Department of Water Resources allocates about $3.3 million annually for early mussel detection. But it's clearly not enough for the scale of this new problem.
It sounds like a significant hurdle to overcome. Chloe, thank you for breaking down this complex and very concerning issue for us.
My pleasure, Grace. It's a crucial story for all Californians.
Absolutely. Here are some other headlines. Well, it seems our wallets are feeling the bite this morning, as the latest inflation report shows the Consumer Price Index for June 2025 rose to an annual rate of 2.7%. That's up from 2.4% in May, hitting its highest mark since February. Economists are pointing their fingers directly at new tariffs, noting they've truly begun to take their toll on consumer prices. Gregory Dacko of EY Parthenon estimates about one-third of June's CPI increase can be laid at the feet of these higher duties, and consumers are feeling the pinch in everyday items, from a jaw-dropping 27.3% increase in egg prices to roasted coffee up over 12% and ground beef beefing up by 10.3%. Even oranges, it seems, are squeezing an extra 3.5% from our pockets. These tariffs are part of the Trump administration's broader trade policy, with a flurry of new tariffs on more than 20 countries set to kick in on August 1st. Many of these duties, including a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports and a 125% tariff on goods from China, Hong Kong, and Macau, though temporarily reduced, have already been making their presence felt. Companies like Walmart, Mitsubishi, and Nike are already raising prices or plan to, citing these duties. While the White House is highlighting record-high tariff revenues, topping $113 billion for the fiscal year, others are concerned. The Budget Lab at Yale estimates these 2025 tariffs could lead to an overall 2.1% increase in consumer prices, costing the average household an estimated $2,800. Meanwhile, the White House is facing a crisis of its own making, as QAnon conspiracy theorists are seeing red over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Followers who once viewed President Trump as a savior destined to expose a satanic pedophile ring now accuse his administration of a cover-up, especially after the Justice Department stated no client list exists. Trump's attempts to downplay the uproar, calling the case pretty boring, have only fueled the fire among his base. Even prominent allies like Laura Loomer and Alex Jones have become critical, with General Michael Flynn urging the president to reconsider, emphasizing the Epstein affair is not going away. It seems for QAnon, the truth isn't just out there, it's out of reach. Up on Capitol Hill, it's a fiscal face-off, as the U.S. Senate debates a bill to cancel approximately $9 billion in previously approved funding. This includes $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which supports NPR, PBS, and local stations, and over $8 billion from foreign aid accounts. The debate advanced by a narrow 51-50 vote, with Vice President J.D. Vance breaking the tie. While Senate Republicans are pushing these cuts to address the national debt, some, like Senator Susan Collins, are concerned about the impact, especially on public broadcasting. Interestingly, a proposed cut to PEPFAR, the global HIV/AIDS program, was removed. Congress is now racing against the clock to meet a Friday midnight deadline. And finally, loaning trouble on the horizon for California medical students. A new Republican-backed bill, now law, caps federal student debt for professional degree students at $50,000 annually and $257,000 total. This move eliminates Grad Plus loans for new students starting July 1, 2026. This is particularly tough news for aspiring doctors, as a four-year medical degree often costs over $300,000, far exceeding the new cap. With California's exorbitant cost of living, many students rely heavily on these federal loans. Critics fear these changes will push students to less favorable private loans, potentially prescribing a solution that exacerbates the nation's looming physician shortage and limits diversity in the medical field. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.